So
There's no action after close.
yeah, there is no action after closed session, but I would like to make a comment. If Kathy Cannon could stand up, and Ryan Evans, please stand up. I'm not going to ask you to come speak. We just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge two of our administrators. They're a true essence of leadership, and we want everyone to know that they have just recently completed the work of their doctoral program. And probably a weight off their shoulders that they both have also successfully completed the exam required to get a superintendent's endorsement. And probably what is most astonishing about this feat is that they completed this work, or at least 2/3 of this work, while also operating schools in a pandemic. So I just wanted an opportunity. It's great that there's so many of you here. Our entire admin team happens to be here this evening. I just wanted an opportunity to recognize two people who've done an outstanding job furthering their professional career and helping strengthen our great team. Congrats, guys.
Consent agenda. Are there any questions?
There were no questions on this.
Can I please get a motion?
Move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I would like to make one quick comment on the consent agenda. We have two resignations of veteran teachers in our district. Both of them have been on the leave of absence this year for family reasons. They have chosen to stay home with their families. Those folks already have teachers in place for them, so we won't need to find new teachers. But thank you to both Ms. O'Hara and Ms. Matero for their work to the district.
Roll call.
Mrs. Jordan?
Aye.
Ms. McAteer? Aye. Ms. Philby? Aye. Mrs. Garvey?
Aye.
Mrs. Laura?
Aye. Aye. Appearances before the board.
Right, so particularly since we have such a large gathering, and perhaps maybe you haven't always seen a viewing of the board meeting, it's pretty customary that at each board meeting there is some level of administrative presentation made. And this month is Dean Pappas, our Director of Student Services, to give us a special education update. And as a preview, Mr. Pappas's responsibilities include not only special education, but early childhood education and English language learners. So there are three different components that fall under Director of Special of Student Services. So with that, Mr. Pappas, take her away. Thank you.
This is working. That's us. All right. Good evening. Again, my name is Dean Pappas. I'm the Director of Student Services here at District 95. I'm very proud to be here tonight to present on behalf of the department and share all the wonderful things happening across special education, ELL, and early childhood. So during the last board meeting, Dr. Kathy Cannon, presented the annual update for teaching and learning and shared more of the specifics related to our intervention services supports. And so as I prepare to discuss student services tonight, it's imperative that we touch down on the value of inclusion. In District 95, we value our diverse classrooms, and we acknowledge that diversity comes with a great responsibility and commitment to ensuring that our teachers and staff have the tools and professional development that they need to support all students. In today's general education classroom, we see increased levels of differentiated instruction, tiered academic and behavioral supports, social emotional learning, and more individualized learning choices than ever before. It requires great collaboration and a mindset that all students belong to all of us. We cannot work in silos to accomplish these goals. And so, as to help equip our teachers to meet the needs of all students, we provide professional development on things like differentiation and different strategies. We include our teachers in our student problem-solving process, or our MTSS model. We collaborate across teachers and specialists, including those from outside agencies like LADSI or Special Education Cooperative Board member. And we continue to build our multi-tiered system of supports, which helps to boost skills in specific areas of need, from academic to behavior to social and emotional. All of these supports we provide are in an effort to bring tools and strategies into the classroom setting. So as you can see from the image here, it's a little small. All students, including students with disabilities and English language learners, receive services and supports at all levels of the continuum based on their individual needs. It helps to showcase the fact that students with disabilities or those who are English language learners do not require intensive intervention in all areas, right? Reading or math, maybe not both. Social emotional needs, maybe not academic ones. This focus helps us move away from old thinking, linking a service or a plan to a label, like having a disability or being an English language learner. So as we continue, or as we see this continuum of support expand inside general education, the lines between special education and general education can become a little blurry. But there do remain some very specific differences and distinctions between the two. And so I'd like to outline what special education is and what it is not. So special education are special rights reserved for students with disabilities. It is part of our multi-tiered system of support in the building and at the district level. It falls on a continuum stemming from the least restrictive environment for the general education classroom. It focuses on specially designed instruction or therapies and includes specific and measurable goals or objectives for accountability purposes. What special education is not a place or a program. It's not a prepackaged program, and it's not a student's identity. A major focus of the department in our district is to continue to push the message that all students are all of our students. And while a student may require specialized instruction for parts of their day, they remain a general education student first and foremost. So to give a little snapshot of our special education related service program district, we have to date 199 students who are eligible to receive special education or related services. This makes up about 12% of students in district. We have 10 special education teachers, 2 early childhood teachers who are both special education endorsed, 5 speech and language pathologists, 4 occupational therapists, 2 physical therapists, 2 social workers, 1 school psychologist, 1 district behavior coach, 1 nurse and 2 health aides, and 18 paraprofessionals. It certainly does take a village, and we're so grateful and proud to have such a wonderful team that we're able to collaborate, again, within our Department of Special Education, but also outside of it in general education. I want to give some shout outs and share some celebrations about the special education programming specifically. We are very proud to offer a full continuum of services from the least restrictive environment. We offer co-teaching and co-treating. We offer small group strategic interventions and small group intensive interventions where students can develop the skills that they need inside a supported classroom and generalize that back out into a larger group setting. We're very proud that we're able to continue to provide the support during the peak of the pandemic. And we were able to make a lot of different accommodations and supports so that kids could get the supports that they needed. 67% of our students with disabilities spend the majority of their school day inside the general education classroom, which is higher than the state average and something that we increase, or that we hope to increase over time. We have a growing number of students with disabilities participating in our extracurricular activities and school-based functions, grades K through 8. We've recently adopted a new math and reading intervention series through what's called the Voyager Sopris curriculum at SE Gross. and it provides our students with more direct instruction opportunities, and we're seeing some really great results and outcomes with that so far. Our school social workers are piloting an LCL screener to help identify students who need additional supports at school. And we have several new team members this year. 3 resource teachers, an early childhood teacher, 4 speech paths, a social worker, and a health aide. We're so grateful for all their contributions. So how do we grow here at special education? Professional development is something that we continue with. It's an ongoing effort. We focus on our academics, social emotional learning, and behavior. We look at increasing opportunities for co-planning and co-teaching between general and special education teachers and our specialists. We continue to evaluate our service delivery model and the instructional tools we use with our students to make sure that we're getting the results that we want. And we want to build upon our existing parent and family partnerships by getting feedback, holding more informational events, and bringing them into the decision-making process with us. Okay, now I'm going to switch gears a little bit to English language learners, our EL department. But to give a brief snapshot, here in District 95, we have 72 students, grades K through 8, about 4% of our student body who are eligible to receive ELL services at school. Our languages represented include Spanish, Polish, Serbian, Ukrainian, Tagalog, Italian, and Bangladesh. We have 1 ELL teacher. We're very grateful for Janet Ellen. She's our 1 EL teacher across the district. We have around 20 teachers district-wide who currently have their ELL endorsement. So each year across the state and here in District 95, we do see a growing number of students who are eligible to receive English language supports at school. As previously stated, we celebrate this growth in our district and in our student diversity, and we take seriously the continued work and professional development that it takes to support all of our learners. A major goal of our small EL department is extending our reach into the space where the students spend most of their time, the general education classroom. So in an effort to work towards this goal, we began the school year by establishing a relationship with the Illinois Resource Center. It's an organization that provides professional development and support services to teachers who serve linguistically and culturally diverse students. And during our Fall Teacher Institute Day, the IRC presented to our staffs at Brook Park and Essie Gross the 10 instructional strategies to support ELs inside the classroom. It was an excellent presentation that resonated with our staff, generated new ideas for our teachers, and also reaffirmed a lot of the strategies we use on a regular basis. One of our goals in District 95 as we expand our reach into the classrooms was developing our first ever ELL committee. So we established that this year at Brook Park. We're very proud. We've got a team of 8 classroom teachers, EL teacher, a speech language pathologist, across grade levels K through 5. And so the work of this group specifically this year was taking from the professional development and the Fall Institute Day, unpacking these 10 strategies that were displayed to our staff, and putting out a monthly newsletter that digs deep into the strategies, how teachers can apply these skills and these strategies inside the classroom. So shout out to our EL. Very thankful for that. Also want to give another shout out to our ELL teacher, Janet Eller, our new formed bilingual parent advisory committee, and the Brook Park Parent Advisory Council, who collaborated and put together an outstanding Hispanic Heritage Month, which concluded by an amazing celebration. Some of the pictures you see up here of Hispanic heritage, which included an outstanding performance by our students and the ballet folklorico dance. We'll put these slides on the district website so you guys can see the pictures too. So how do we grow in ELL? We want to continue to perform some internal auditing, looking at our programming, where we look at our services, our supports, our collaboration, our staffing solutions, our parent, family, community partnerships. We want to continue with continuing education and professional development with focus on earning the ELL endorsement for our classroom teachers, which we can best support our students with English, who are English language learners. We want to maintain and grow our partnerships with LADT and West 40 districts in the realm of English language learners, and continue to develop our bilingual parent advisory council, which focuses on helping to get the parent voice to improving or restructuring our English language learner program, getting feedback on our programming and services, and building our partnership for school-based functions. All right, last but certainly not least, our early childhood update. And it has been a very busy and productive year in early childhood, so I'm excited to share this update with you. Full snapshot, we have 4 classrooms, 53 students in the district, a multidisciplinary team, including our teachers, paraprofessionals, and related service providers. We have an ongoing screening and enrollment process for children who are exiting early intervention supports from the state, or who are referred by their parents for concerns that they have about their child's development. And like all of our other supports, we provide a full continuum of service. In our larger group preschool for all classroom, that supports a blended class, a more specialized group in our special education classroom for students who are requiring more intensive interventions. And we also, through our partnership with LADT, have access to a few different satellite programs that offer more specialized supports for students with more significant communication disorders. So as if navigating learning during a pandemic wasn't enough, we were also notified this fall that our Preschool for All program is being audited by the state as part of us maintaining our grant status. And as if you've been audited, you know that the process of being monitored and put under a microscope is always a little anxiety provoking. But the results continue to reaffirm our efforts, providing an exceptional learning experience for our youngest learners. The outcome of the audit revealed high marks in language and literacy standards, learning activities, and interactions between students and educators. It also highlighted our emphasis on play-based learning and fostering relationships with families by including them in our learning process. Got some great pictures to go through here of our EC program. Kids learning through play. Enjoying the beautiful courtyard at SE Gross. Love that picture. Learning musical notes, engaging in science experiments. Something with a plant. So here are some pictures from our recent, or in the fall, our parent participation day. This is a requirement of the PFA grant, and typically involves parents or family members into the classrooms to showcase a final product of learning or in the learning sequence. We continue to have really great turnouts in terms of our parent participation. We obviously have to make some adjustments with COVID protocols, but yeah, some pictures up here, and then from our classroom teacher, a note that this was the pet theme to go with their recent unit. And so each child was encouraged to bring their favorite stuffed animal pet from home. Some of the highlights were making a costume for their pet, making and decorating a collar tag for their pet, and making their own toothpaste, which was made of crushed mint leaves, baking soda, and water. A little science experiment to brush their plastic pet's teeth. And they also got to observe a little fun science experiment in the process. So all kids and parents and adults were very proud, and we're also happy no stuffed animals were harmed in this process. How do we grow our EC department? Again, continued collaboration within the district, across LADT, within the West 40 districts, about best practices in early childhood education. Our professional development focused on feedback from our recent audit this year, and improving our kindergarten transition plans as we continue our articulation between buildings, between educators, and again, bringing parents and family members into the fold as we do this process. That is all. Thank you so much for your time. We do have more information and
Board have any questions?
I have a question. Related to special education services, you referenced 199 students in that program. Is that just students who are receiving services here, like in our facilities, or is that everybody in districts?
that is district, so all district students, whether they're all resident district students, so whether they're being serviced in district or in a satellite program, that is all of our
And
students.
very generally, I'm not looking for details, do we have, as people who work in our facilities, do we have involvement with those students that are outplaced, and are we part of their planning and their programming?
Yeah, very much so. So we have a few students who are serviced in a LADSI program, and LADSI, obviously, we have very close ties to with our leadership and our educators. We have a number of related service providers in district who work in LADSI. And I personally attend all the out-of-district meetings for our students who are serviced in another school district or in another building as well. So we work collaboratively, getting updates on students and looking especially towards when a student is ready to come back into district, working a smooth transition plan so that we can work through integration and inclusion.
So they don't lose the advocacy of the people that were employed and people that are part of our program when they are have to receive services out. So
No.
we're still there to advocate. for them.
Absolutely, and we've had a lot of really good success just in the last 2 years, actually, with having students who were outplaced return back into district. And usually it does entail some kind of transitional time where we're working or building time where a student can have a few periods of the day or parts of the day in their home school and then build that time up.
Thank you, that really, can you hear me? Sorry, with the thing I want to left here to read. I was just making sure that we were still very active in them, that they didn't feel like they weren't being advocated for from the people that we value here in our own districts.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much.
Agenda is public comment. We have about 20 people who have signed it. So I need to get I would ask for a motion to extend time to 45 minutes. We really need about 40, so I want to make it 2 with just the transition time. So I need a motion to extend time to 45 minutes.
I motion to extend the time to 45 minutes.
Roll call.
Billy, Darby,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Aye.
Before we begin public comment, I want to remind everyone that we expect you to be respectful in your words and in your behavior. We realize that there are very strong opinions that will be shared, but ask that you present yourself in a respectful way. There are a few children present, and we know that they watch our behavior closely and listen to our words, and I would hope that we will all conduct ourselves in a way that will be a positive example for our children. As we navigate through this time, we want the children of District 95 to show respect to one another, their teachers and administrators, and as their parents and influential adults in their lives. I will call you up. There's no order here. We're going to let our students speak first. I do ask that if you're here, your mask is over your face, as what is expected at this time. So our first speaker is Leo Vega. Before you start, this will be the same for everyone. I will keep a 2-minute timer. I will hold my hand up and there's 10 seconds left and it's 2 minutes. Your time will end here. I will be done. Okay? Thank you.
Good evening.
A little closer.
Good evening.
Thank you for your time to allow me to speak. My name is Leah, and I am a seventh grader at SC Groves. I just want to express that I would like to have masks optional. Over the summer, I made sure to do my part and get vaccinated. We were promised by the governor you could be mask free. Now we know that the governor's mandates have been unlawful. I have been a student at District 95 since kindergarten. I never thought that my district, which I've been proud of, would sell my rights to be mask optional, so you can receive money from ESSER funds. Knowing this is what binds you to sticking to the mask mandate is heartbreaking. Now I know us students are just another dollar sign for you. Again, I ask you to give us students the choice and to prove to us we are more than money. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good.
Good evening. At some point, our kids will ask why they are still required to wear a mask when over 200 of our neighboring districts have gone mask optional. What will the answer be? I know what my answer will be. Adults needed to feel safe, so they forced you to wear a mask until they felt it was safe to do without. Since the start of COVID, more kids under the age of 18 have died from suicide than from COVID. When the number of children taking their life due to forced mandates exceeds the number of children taken by a virus, something is very wrong. Our kids are not okay. The emotional trauma they are being subjected to is criminal. Our kindergartners and first graders have not had one day of school without a mask. They're learning how to speak. Explain to me how they're supposed to learn to enunciate when they can't see their teacher's face. There are some of you that believe your kids don't mind wearing masks. Have you asked them that? When they are told they are vectors for disease and not wearing a mask could kill somebody, they're going to do it. They're not volunteering to wear a mask. They're being forced by fear, and that's tyranny. It's sick. Shame on us. Shame on us for not recognizing this for what it is, a move for control. Our administration has failed us. A return to in-person learning plan was made absent sufficient law to back it. Dr. K has emergency authority to make a policy. He alone made the call for mandatory masking, and he alone can reverse it. 50+ schools made a decision within their community to go mask optional. So why hasn't he done so? He'll tell you he doesn't believe the community is ready. He thinks that way because parents have remained silent. The only difference between those 50+ districts and us is the parents said enough. If they can stand up to the Illinois State Board of Education, so can we. The district must follow in due process, regardless of political pressures or federal grants from ESSER. The TRO nullified all mandates by ISB and the Illinois Department of Public Health. Our children are not bargaining chips. We need an exit plan, not in 3 weeks, but now. For the parents afraid to speak up against masking, know that you are not alone. When we stand up together, the mandates end. Freedom is not a reward for compliance. That's how jails work.
Hey, Butch.
Christina Soto.
It's a school board meeting I'm watching. Well, I'm watching the school board meeting.
Ready? Yes. Okay, I
Is
don't
that everybody at my school?
have.
These are parents.
Maybe just.
Please mute.
Everyone's muted. Should be good.
Yeah, I don't hear it.
So we talk about how our kids are supposed to be our number one priority and we have to listen to them, but when it comes to them wearing the mask and not being listened to. I have a problem when my child comes home and says, if I wanted to wear a mask, if I didn't want to wear a mask, I would be sent to jail. Those are their words. That's what they're coming up with. I draw the line there. I draw the line when teachers are telling my child that if they don't wear their mask, they're gonna get detention. For what? For a mask that doesn't work? We've done everything that we can. We've worn masks, we've closed schools, we've social distanced, we've gotten vaccinated. What more are we going to need? Why is it that this school is not mask optional? If you truly believe that the mask works, then by all means, wear your mask. If you don't want to, that should be fine too. Right now, what we have to teach these kids is that, you know what, we're not all gonna agree on everything. That's not the way the real world works. If they have a difference of opinion, we need to respect that. We need to teach our children to respect that. If you wanna wear a mask, doesn't make you a sheep. If you don't wanna wear a mask, it doesn't make you a conspiracy theorist. I'm really sick of the narrative that's going around and I hear it from the kids. This has to stop. We have to give them the option. Do they want to do it or not? You know, we tell the kids that they can do anything, they can be anything. And I have an 8th grader and she's supposed to pick her high school classes. She's supposed to kind of figure out what she wants to do in life, but when it comes to the mask, she doesn't get a choice. Okay, I'm not okay with that. We need to start listening to the children. They should be our first priority right now. And it shouldn't be their burden to bear when the adults are scared. Thank you.
Julie Shamazis. The restraining order on emergency powers puts mandated masking under the jurisdiction of each local school board. You have the power in your hands to give our kids a normal childhood there. At this point, the masks are a security blanket, a visible, useless reminder to keep one's guard up at all times. There is nothing scientific about our district indefinitely covering children's faces. When down the street, kids are having a normal school experience. At the same time, every family has the right to continue masking using their own judgment. But the time staff spend policing masks is better spent teaching and nurturing the kids. And as a medical professional, I can state that mental problems have taken a heavier toll in the pediatric ward than COVID. Children have made the biggest sacrifices of any population, purely because they have little economic impact. We will not mask our kids forever, but you have no plan in place for when to end it.
Last summer, you voted unanimously in favor of forced masking despite the divided parent sentiment. Don't let down the kids because you're worried about adult emotions, appearances, or Pritzker's opinion of you. All of you are parents. If even one of you is willing to put the kids' interests first, have the courage to speak up. The kids need adults in their corner. David Jagubiec.
Good evening. As we stand here tonight, by my count, which was done quickly on the Metro tonight, there are 78 days left in the school year. Obviously, that means one thing for sure. This week, we celebrated 100 days. This deserves a moment of recognition for you, for our teachers, our school administrators, and parents like Bridget and I, who, like many of you, have had moments, sometimes late at night, sometimes early in the morning, when we really questioned whether we could keep doing this. It's hard. It's stressful. I know I need a vacation. I need to be somewhere where I can cut loose, run my toes through the sand, and sip on a cold tropical drink. And when I look around this room, I know a lot of you are in the same situation. But what's kept us going, and what I think has kept many of you going, is that our kids love school. They love being in school. And every morning when my kids go, they grab their masks, just as they grab their water bottles and their lunches. I get that what's easy for my kids may not be easy for all kids. But I know that what has been done to protect kids and their families and the youngest among us who still cannot get a vaccine. And I also know that what we're doing is working. It's working. We haven't had to do emergency remote days because of outbreaks like other districts. We haven't had to quarantine classrooms. But more importantly, we haven't had public battles between teachers and administrators and our board. And thank God, we haven't become a hashtag on Twitter. There's one reason for the success: togetherness. Through your leadership, with the support of teachers, administrators, and buy-in from parents, we're navigating the pandemic. So thank you. Congratulations on 100 days. Hopefully we can get through this and have a street dance. And there may not be sand or tropical drinks, but we can cut loose together. Thank you.
Brent Decker.
Sorry, I probably should have sat closer to the front. I apologize. My name is Brent Decker. I have a kindergarten student here, my son. So I come to you as a parent, but also as a public health professional. I've been working in epidemic control for the last 20 years at an organization called Cure Violence Global. We're more focused on infectious disease and epidemics related to violence. But what I wanted to say today is this kind of conflict and the politicization of this particular epidemic and pandemic is normal. If we think back and we look at the historical record of any time a pandemic has hit, the same kind of division takes place, right? That it becomes highly politicized and it becomes difficult then for administrators of schools, of other institutions to follow the science in terms of what is best for the overall good. And so as a parent and as a public health professional, I implore the Board of Education to follow the recommendations of the CDC, of the World Health Organization, that actually do the necessary research and understanding of all the data sets to give the best recommendations. It's not easy. It's not perfect. It's not, preferable, some of the situations that we're in, but it's very important in terms of the long-term recovery, both of our students, the economy, et cetera, that we have that be our guiding light and not necessarily some of the kind of more emotional things we might feel about it. in terms of wearing a mask or not. So I just implore the Board of Education to continue following the CDC's recommendations, and hopefully we can get through this together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Carol Ferguson.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Ferguson, and I've had 5 kids come to the school district. My youngest 2 right now attend SC Gross, 6th grade and 8th grade. They are the only 2 kids, actually 2 or 3 kids that showed up to school the last few days with no mask. They are standing their ground. Last Friday, Judge Grischow ruled as follows. This court has declared the IDPH emergency order void. I'm going to repeat that again. This court has declared the IDPH emergency order void. This is not subject to interpretation. This is not subject to school lawyers wanting it to mean anything different. It's a statement in a judgment order. The judge was wise to use specific language for those not named in the TRO on page 28, footnote 39. She states the emergency order is void. She also states if the school is going to enforce the governor's emergency orders and mask mandates, students must receive due process. All of our kids have been denied due process, all of them. She states further, the arbitrary method as to contact tracing and masking in general continues to raise fair questions as to the legality of the executive orders in light of the violations of healthy children's due process rights. Statutory rights have attempted to be bypassed through the issuance of executive orders and emergency rules. This judge states, and I quote, "This is the type of evil. This type of evil is exactly what the law is intended to constrain. There is no legal basis for this mask mandate, none. An illegal mask mandate is a civil rights violation. So why is the district enforcing an illegal mask mandate? These are the facts I know. District 95 took $1.8 million in ESSER money from federal and state government, $145,000 round 1, $550,000 round 2, and $1.12 million round 3. So here's my $1 million question. What strings are attached to this funding? We as parents need to know why you are doing this to our kids. Has the state or federal government tied acceptance to these funds and these stat mask mandates?
Your time is up. Santos?
Hello, I'd like to thank everyone that's come up here, but I respect everyone's opinions.
Can you just read your mask on?
I respect everyone's opinions, but when it comes down to
Excuse
it.
me, please put your mask on.
I'm not.
No, we're not gonna continue until you
All
take your
right.
mask off.
All right.
Thank
there we
you.
go. So there's actually scientific studies, hundreds of them that we can cite that have shown that masks are ineffective. Surgical masks are ineffective. If you look at the Danish study that was done in 2020, proving that surgical masks had no effect on lowering infection. They don't. And if we want to go into studies that prove that cotton masks and cloth masks have absolutely no protection, this is true. And if you do wear a surgical mask, they've even had studies proving that the gaps between every one of them, I've looked at everyone, the 2-inch to 3-inch gap between your mask, the 2-inch gap, you have a 70% loss of effectiveness with your mask. With a 3-inch gap, you have 100% loss of effectiveness. And we're not even talking about when we're going down to the disgustingness of bacteria and mold that are growing on masks of children, especially because they're bringing it in their mouths. Doesn't matter how many times you wash it. And when you wash it, you're actually science here, but I will bring science and I will actually prove every documentation that there is no study to date that proves that a mask is effective. We could even go as far as this distancing, 6 feet rule doesn't exist in science. So I don't think our children should be subjected to this any longer. I think that picture, thank you, Dean, for what you did, but that pictures that were up, did anyone see any kids smiling or happy or anything, any emotion? We couldn't, because they're wearing masks. These children psychologically are going to be damaged more than we know. And I am not going to stand for it. My children will not be subject to this anymore. I think this is very sad that we care more about our opinions than true science and what is best for our children. Our children are learning. Time?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah Fontana.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Sarah Fontana, and I have a third grader here at Wood Park and a 2-year-old at home. My children's health and safety are my highest priority. With all of the vicious debating happening online this past week, it has caused concern for my child's safety at school. So much that instead of sending my child on the bus Monday, I physically brought him to school to make sure he would arrive safely and there were no issues with unmasked, unvaccinated children in his class. Now, he is vaccinated happily and wears his mask happily. Our family is vaccinated, but we have a 2-year-old at home who cannot be. So while my student may not be at high risk for catching a bad case of COVID, we still need to protect others. That is the young, the old, the people unable to vaccinate, the immunocompromised, and most importantly, our school staff. Taking away masking provides a huge risk, not only to our children's health, but to our educators. Just because people are tired of this pandemic does not mean we can just act as if it isn't here. Masking works, and to my knowledge, wearing a mask has not caused any physical harm to any of our students. Until we can reach a point where vaccinating for COVID is a requirement, along with every other vaccine our children are required to have to attend school, we need to keep masking to help the spread keep to a minimum. With our biggest outbreak of COVID taking place just after winter break, we need to remain concerned it may happen again after spring break. Now is not the time to remove our safety procedures. Thank you.
Kelly Cordino.
First and foremost, I want to remind this incredible community of what we all have in common. We want what is best for our children. This TRO is a gift of self-governance. This community can come together and make decisions for itself and be an example for other school districts as well. The science is changing. It's not just the fringe minority saying it, it's mainstream scientists as well. This virus never was a threat to kids. Statistically, 0% chance of death. We're coming to the endemic stage of this, and we need to start living with it. Mitigations were always supposed to be temporary, and although we love to live in a world without viruses and colds and sickness, it's not reality. In fact, we need viruses to lead to a robust immune system so we can better fight off future. We have done our part for 2 years. Children who are the least harmed by this virus have sacrificed the absolute most. The harm of these mitigations is obvious in the increase in drug use, suicide, and self-harm, not to mention all the physical and mental effects. It is time to remove the most harmful of mitigations, the quarantine for close contacts. We need to keep healthy kids in school. In July, the justification for masking was completely dependent on the quarantine, wanting to keep the most amount of kids in school. Without the quarantine, there's no justification for masking. I think we could keep distancing classrooms and lunchrooms for now. I'm not asking for everybody to take off their masks. Every parent in this district has the option to get their child vaccinated, and N95s are free from the government. I am demanding to have our personal choice back. Do these mitigations work? Omicron burned through Illinois regardless of mitigations. Do we need to wait on the governor's orders? I don't know its motivation, and on a scale of 1 to Illinois, how corrupted they are by teachers' unions. I implore you to listen and begin to change these mitigations immediately. This group you see will not sit by and sit down and be quiet. It will only grow bigger and get stronger and be louder. Do not ignore us.
Christine Sanchez. I'm sorry for some. Okay.
Hello, my name is Christine Saint. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? It's right here, right?
Hello.
There we go. Loud. No, it keeps going on. Ready?
Hello.
Okay, I'm just not gonna touch it. Hello? Hello? I broke it. Hello?
We're gonna switch mic.
Okay. So much going on. Okay.
Ready? There I am. My name is Christine Sanchez. Please consider allowing the families to decide if the children should wear masks or not. I have 3 children in the district, one in the ECE preschool program, one in kindergarten, and one in 5th grade. My preschooler and kindergarten have never been to school without a mask. They only remember going to school with a mask on. As a foster adoptive parent with a biracial family, my children before joining my family have suffered from trauma and neglect. Your brain responders will develop differently if you are experiencing repeated trauma. My son's brain has developed differently than others. His response is to look at your face for approval when he is acting out for attention. However, in school, he is unable to see his teacher's face, and this is resulting in difficult behavior, among other things. He is unable to attend a full kindergarten classroom. My son also has a discolored line across his nose, cuts on his face and behind his ears from wearing a mask for 700 hours, which is the last 6 months we have spent in school. My 5th grader, my oldest daughter has terrible acne from wearing her mask for 700 hours. She tells me every day, Mom, I could not finish my lunch. We didn't have enough time. Yesterday in speaking to her, I realized that they don't have enough time because for the brief moment at school, when she is not wearing her mask, she gets to see and hear her friends. These children would rather not eat so they can enjoy just a few minutes of seeing each other's faces and expression. Please consider allowing these parents and choice to not wear a mask. Everyone has a different story on why their children should mask up or not. Just let the people decide. Every parent in this room would do anything to protect their children.
Lori Giblin.
My last name is Pierce. My middle name is Giblin, just so you have it on record. Should I start? Okay. I have twins in 1st grade at BP. I sent an email to their teachers this morning. I have your back. I am also a teacher, not at this school district. I'm a special ed teacher. My district did not go back full in person until April of 2021. Maslow's law says if our children are safe, they are able to learn. Administration and teachers need time to process all of these changes. They need time to develop procedures for our children so that they can feel safe here in schools. Again, I'm not an educator in this school district. On Friday, there was a fire drill at our school. It went smoothly. Our culture, our social structures are in place, but they're on shaky ground. I'm on shaky ground. hearing that two of my child's adults, one of them that they had for kindergarten is resigning, is heartbreaking to me. Heartbreaking. Fauci said yesterday, there's light at the end of the tunnel in April. I beg you, we aren't there yet as a community. We will get there. I don't want to go back in hibernation.
Josh King.
Testing. District 95 Superintendent Board and Administration. We plan to take legal action as plaintiffs against District 95 if the law is not followed. Please let the following record be shown. On February 4, 2022, Sangamon County Judge Gritz shall rule that the emergency mask mandate and guidance from the governor, IDPH, and ISBE are void. The mask mandates in our schools are illegal. No authority exists under the law to mandate masks in our schools for children or for staff without due process. Although our child is not listed on the lawsuits, I understand that with this judge's ruling, all children and teachers are afforded due process of the law. As the judge stated, non-named plaintiffs and school districts throughout the state may govern themselves accordingly. We, the parents, expect you to follow the law as declared by the judge. If District 95 chooses to continue the mask mandates, vaccination requirements for staff, and close contact quarantine, you are knowingly breaking the law. Parents are putting you on notice and are ready to take immediate legal action, including, but not limited to, filing a civil rights violation claim. Quarantines, test stays, exposures, masking, and testing requirements, and excluding children for school for close contact cannot be requested or enforced by our schools without giving that child or staff due process under the law. Therefore, we expect District 95 board, staff, and parents to simply follow the law. By continuing to enforce any of these policies, the school would be willingly engaged in any legal activity. Furthermore, the correct law that would govern the ability of District 95 to put forth a mask policy is found in the Administrative Code, Section 690. In that section, the law states that a modified quarantine order must be in place and entered in court before a mask or quarantine process can be made by a school. A modified quarantine order was never put in place, which means the district has enacted its masking policies in an illegal manner. We expect that when our children come to school with no mask, they will not be presented with masks. Pressure to put one on, nor will they be removed from the classroom. We expect their education to not be disrupted. We expect our civil rights to be upheld. Children have been subject to the illegal actions of ISBE, IDPH, and the school board for the past 2 years. It is past time for this board to respect every child's right to due process before masking, exclusion, and testing can be required. If you attempt to mask our children or enforce close contact quarantines in or out of the school, understand that we have plans for seeking due process if needed, and we will take legal action.
Hi, how are you? Thank you. So just want to say, I'm an attorney. I'm a municipal attorney and a school attorney. And just want to explain a little bit about the circuit court ruling. It is a circuit court ruling. There are multiple levels of courts throughout the state. There's the appellate court, the Supreme Court. The circuit court in Sangamon County has absolutely no authority to bind anybody in Cook County unless they are named in that lawsuit. So they have no authority. That order is not binding upon Cook County or their school districts. Everything else that judge stated is what's called dicta, D-I-C-T-A. It is her opinion of what the law is. Well, I can tell you another thing. Thomas DeVore, the attorney that brought that suit, he was also the attorney that brought suit for Darren Bailey down in Coles County at the beginning of the pandemic when some of the mitigation measures were struck. Well, guess what? Thomas DeVore got overturned at the appellate court. There's a good chance that is also going to happen in this case. I urge that the school district actually take the time, let this work through the courts, get the instructions from the courts, because as people are saying here that they're going to sue for violations of due process, when in all honesty, I don't think they have a case at all. There are plenty of other people on the other side that could potentially sue. So when it comes to how the law is actually structured, I think we need to wait for the instruction from the appellate court and possibly the Illinois Supreme Court. In addition to that, we've always stated it takes a village. Well, it takes a village among all of us to protect everybody. It's not just about the individual rights. It is about us as a collective whole. In addition to that, there is nothing that shows that masks actually cause depression. So I'm just trying to think of all these things I gotta
Please stop
respond
for a
to.
second.
Yeah.
We will not have people interrupting our speakers. That is disrespectful, as I said at the beginning, and you can't sit and let the people speak, you'll be asked to leave.
I do appreciate that.
Continue, you have about 15 seconds left.
Okay. Last thing, I heard somebody say that there's 0% chance of death. Well, you know what? You tell that to the parents of the children that have died, because there are plenty of parents in our community in LaGrange where there was a 17-year-old boy that died last year from COVID. So you know what? There's also young children that have died. There are children that have died. Let's show some compassion. Let's let this work through the courts. Thank you.
I mean, please stop. You guys, we are a community, and you might have differing opinions, but please be respectful to one another. We have children in here, and you want them to be respectful of one another. We are better than that. Betsy Keller.
Obviously, I want mask choice in school. But what I want to ask is, what is already in place? Because whether it's tonight, whether it's next month, whether it's August, at some point, these are coming off. Do you have a plan in place? What steps are in place? I have seen the reports in other schools, and based on what I hear here, I am concerned that the minute that people have the choice, that kids have the choice, there's going to be teachers bullying. There will be teachers bullying, whether intentionally or not. Administrators, are you going to have them separating out the kids that aren't masked? What about the kids that attack other kids, whether because they do have a mask on or they don't have a mask on? All of this is on the table right now. And I hear a lot, and we all have our own opinions, but I hear a lot about what, take the mask off, keep the mask on. I want to know what the plan is, because at some point they are coming off. And I want to know, do we have a plan and what it is? I'm not going to go into everything else, but what I am going to say is, I hope that the plan includes counseling more than we currently have, because they do a great job, but there is not right now enough counselors in the system. And all of these kids are going to need it, all of them, because whether they're in kindergarten or they're in 8th grade, these do affect them. And I feel the worst for these kids who have been at this school, who have never once had their mask off, except for the few minutes they get to eat lunch. I know you guys started with the best of intentions. We all did, but I really think those intentions are gone now. Do the right thing, help our kids get these masks off their faces, help this community come together and be able to live with the choices that we all get to make. Thank you.
Prior to the July 29th board meeting, I emailed board a series of OSHA regulations governing the use of respirators and masking, NIOSH education material, and explained NIOSH certifications. That's the body that tests masks and respirators for their use. They actually run through scientific tests and certify everything, and a bunch of other guidance, some of which I actually worked under it as a sterile processing tech when I was in college. In the olden days, that would be following the science. You actually looked at those recommendations before incorrectly telling people they have to wear masks like this. I can tell you something, there's no NOA, there's no certification on this one. There is on this. I can also tell you that good luck trying to get a little kid to put something like this on their face and have that work. Also, you have to be fitted for something like this, for fitness. You put something like this on here and your lungs can't take it, you're gonna hurt yourself. Nothing has changed since July 29th, except that we found out through the media and through the CDC that they did admit that cloth masks really don't do a whole heck of a lot. We're also finding out the vaccine doesn't prevent the spread. So all these measures you guys are trying to do to prevent the spread of COVID, it's not going to work. It's not doing anything. We also know that it doesn't really affect kids as much. It still does, you can still get severe cases, but for the most part, it's negligible, statistically negligible. And why are we doing this? Even after we get a ruling that says that all of what I just presented is correct, you guys are still not doing it. So I'm asking you guys to choose to take the mask mandate off.
10 seconds.
Because if you don't, you're going to be forced to.
Hi, I'm Lee Pysick. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and not as my position on the BPC. I wanted to say mostly to everyone listening, like everyone keeps talking about choice, my kid's choice, my parents, my right as a parent to make a choice. But when you make a choice to send your child to school without a mask on, you take away my choice. So my children they did not choose to have medical conditions. I did not choose at age 4 to be diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Those were not my choice. So yeah, wearing a mask on my children's faces and sending your children to school with masks on protects us as a community. And that's what our community is amazing for. When my daughter had surgery, major surgery in 4th grade, the community came together. They fed us for 6 weeks. They sent us flowers. Every single day, she had a card that she could open up. So she felt that she was in her classroom. The cards, the pictures in her hospital room where she stayed for 8 days at Larry Children's, people wore t-shirts that she designed with unicorns on them, and all of the unicorn pictures surrounded her in her hospital room to tell her that her community was behind her. And we're better than this. Like, all of this back and forth, this screaming at each other. Think about your neighbor. Look at the floor. Be respectful, be responsible, be positive. That's not what's happening here to anyone. Like, I'll look at both sides. We can't be yelling at each other. We can't be going off on each other and thinking only about our own self and our own children. I hate the mask. I have acne. I've never had acne in my life. I have acne now. I'm a hairstylist. I sweat, beads of sweat while I'm blow drying people. And I'm standing behind the chair for 14, 16 hours. But I do it because I care about my clients. I care about my community. I'm not just thinking about myself.
10 seconds.
I wanted to also thank the board for putting up with all this nonsense all these months here. And just thank you for continuing to give our kids an excellent education. Again, continue on. Thanks.
Down to our last one, Michelle Parker.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Parker. I have 2 kids at this school, 4th grade and 2nd grade. And my original intention on speaking tonight was to thank all of you. Because the last 2 years, I don't need to tell everybody this, have been so hard, so difficult in every single way you can imagine. And yet these folks are showing up on top of work, childcare, everything else, all of us are doing, and they're showing up for the kids and carrying the heavy load of making the hardest decisions for the community. And all of you over there, the staff that show up here every single day for our kids are doing that on top of their own life stressors, their own childcare. So thank you to all of you for that. I know what I don't know. I'm not an epidemiologist. I sure am glad that we have one in our community. I'm not a lawyer. Thank you. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a child psychologist.
So when it comes to these hard, difficult situations, and me deciding what I think is best for my community and for my family, I listen to the experts. I listen to the scientists. I listen to who? I listen to CDC. I listen to all of you. I listen to Dr. K. I trust this group to make the hard decisions, even when they're being abused, frankly, threatened, accused of doing things for monetary gain or power. Come on, everybody, come on. This is about our kids, it's about our community. These are masks. This too shall pass. Time. Let's pull it together.
Thank you, everyone who spoke. Communications?
Oh, sorry, no communications.
FOIA requests.
Yeah, so we've had 3 FOIA requests since the last time. The first one is from ABC7 Chicago regarding remote learning equipment that was used this year. We weren't in a remote learning model, we were in an in-person model, so that was easy. The Landmark newspaper requested some materials that were submitted to the board relative to quotes obtained for broadcasting / audio broadcasting of board meetings. And then lastly, there was a pretty intensive FOIA by a person representing Illinois Patriots. It was a pretty lengthy FOIA request, and subsequently we had our attorney respond to that request and deny the FOIA. And all of that information has been presented for all 3 of those.
Okay. Old business.
Sure. The first matter of old business is a resolution relating to the topic we've been talking about at every meeting for about the last 6 months. And that's the issuance of taxable general obligation limited school bonds. And this will be the last step of the evening to accept the resolution. And what I'm going to ask is that the board approve the resolution as it's presented, but that there is a specific language listed to the action item that, as you know, in previous meetings, we want that read exactly as it's printed. So it looks like maybe Ms. Garvey is ready to go. This seems to be her level of expertise reading these things word for word. So if you could read the action item as it's written there, that would be great.
I make a motion to approve the resolution providing for the issue of not to exceed $7 million in taxable general obligation limited tax school bonds, Series 2022, for the purpose of increasing the working cash fund of the district, providing for the levy of a direct annual tax to pay the principal and interest on said bonds, and authorizing the execution of a bond purchase agreement with Raymond James and Associates Inc. in connection with the proposed sale of said bonds.
Second. Roll call.
Mrs. Jordan? Ms. McAteer?
Aye.
Ms. Billy? Aye. Mrs. Garvey?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Mrs. Mosquito?
Aye.
Mrs. McBride?
Aye.
Okay.
I'm sorry, there's a lot of chatter going on. I'm having a really hard time concentrating. Somebody got this from
Oh, I don't have it. We go back.
Can we, if you wouldn't mind, can we get all the way through at least well, yep. Why don't we, yeah, we're through the bond. We haven't gotten to the next one. We would need a motion to go back to public comment.
Motion to go back.
Okay,
Roll call.
Ms. Philby? Ms. McAteer?
Aye.
Mrs. Jordan? Mrs. Garvey?
Aye.
Mrs. Laura?
Aye.
Ms. Stevic?
Aye.
And Mrs. McBride?
Aye.
Wait, go ahead. When you get up there, can we have your green sheets?
They should be up there.
You want me to fill it out after?
Yeah, after you go ahead and speak, and then you can fill that out, just leave it, thank you.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Anna. I'm here to advocate for my first grader and his rights to breathe properly. And our basic freedom to choose. It is my understanding our society is based on not imposing our values and beliefs on others through force. This is dogmatic to continue the mask mandate when it's not legal. We have sovereignty over our bodies and to do as we please. My son and his classmates are deserving of a normal school experience with the right to breathe and socialize. Life already has its flow, and it's not up to the school board to put upon trauma to our children. Wearing a mask instills our body to be in a survival mode. Being in that state is not how children should be living. There are many studies that have proven masking is detrimental to the development of our children's social skills. It's not about health at this point, but about control, and truly we do not have that power over us. Over 200 school districts have gone mask optional. How is our community and district any different than those that are mask optional? Why can't we give our children back their normalcy? I plead that we now move to mask optional at this time. Parents should have the option and not an outside body that clearly does not have the best interest of the community as a whole. It is time to get our basic right freedom to choose what's best for our children and families. Us parents know what's best for our children, and we have the full responsibility. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go back to old business. We are on the school calendar.
Yeah, well, revel in the days when the February board meeting, the hot topic was simply the school calendar. So the school calendar was discussed in January and is typically approved by the school board in February. There's been no changes to the school calendar. I would encourage the board to approve the school calendar as presented. There'll be a couple of days, and the 2022-2023 school calendar will be available for you to view on the district website. Nothing spectacular about the calendar, nothing out of the normal. So that's the school calendar.
And this does match up with
I'm sorry, yeah, the holiday, the major holiday breaks matches up with Riverside Brookfield High School 208.
Get a motion?
Move to approve the 2022-2023 school calendar as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Garvey?
Aye.
Ms. Laura? Mrs. Stevic?
Aye.
Ms. Philby?
Aye.
Ms. McAteer?
Aye.
Mrs. Jordan?
Aye.
And Mrs. McBride?
Aye. Agenda. You get your printed agenda. Thank you. Okay, we are on to broadcasting the school board meeting.
Yeah, so we had a special board meeting a couple weeks ago. I apologize for not recalling the exact date, which was called after the January board meeting where the board discussed the petition that was presented to them, and the topic of really two things were coming up in that meeting. One was broadcasting, meaning using some platform like Zoom or Google Hangouts or some mechanism. So broadcasting generally meaning providing some sort of live feed. I think we've grouped that together just to be called Zoom, but broadcasting. But then there was also a concern that where we generally meet in the multi-purpose room so that we can keep this space available for community use, that it was hard to hear in that venue. And so then the idea of actually some sort of audio or microphone system that's available to us and affixed in this space would be available in that space. So, and then how do those two merge together so that the audio is actually heard much more clearly through whatever broadcast stream meeting, for example, Zoom. So we had known through past that while we're Zooming now, that it's that microphone off that device that's capturing the Zoom audio, and that this sometimes created interference. So we wanted something that would directly go from there and onward. And I had done some work to provide different alternatives, and there was a lengthy discussion amongst the board, and it was agreed that we would bring it here for a vote today. So that's where we're at. And I don't know if the board needs time to discuss more or ask any further questions. If the board would like to take a vote,
I'm with you.
yeah, trying to get into the board.
Is there any further discussion that needs to happen? We all are, we know, so the vote would be moving forward with you purchasing the equipment that was discussed at a meeting, correct? Just to be clear on what.
The action item as it reads is to direct the superintendent to secure equipment for the purpose of broadcasting school meetings. And I guess if you were only interested in some sort of sound projection for the multi-purpose room, for example, or that could be portable to any meeting room, you could amend the action item to read have audio equipment. And then you, I guess by your vote, I would know what I need to do. So,
Can I make a motion? I don't think there's no more discussion needed. We did that here in a long meeting last week about it. Okay.
I move to direct the superintendent to secure equipment for the purpose of broadcasting school board meetings.
Second. Roll call.
Mrs. Garvey?
Aye.
Mrs. Laura?
Aye.
Mrs. Buick?
Aye.
Mrs. Billy?
No.
Mrs. Becker?
Aye.
Mrs. Jordan?
Aye.
And Mrs. McBride?
No.
and so if I heard that right, the motion
I
passes
did.
5-2. Okay, so what I would say to the board and then also to the public, because there's quite a bit here, is we want to make sure that we are doing this in an effective manner. I think the reason why we moved away from Zoom was because we heard the quality was poor. In my gaining different quotes, what I can tell you, as you're aware of a lot of things, they're not just sitting on shelves, they're not readily available. I will commit to making sure that we at a minimum Zoom. And if we happen to have to be in this space for a while due to the number of people that would show up, then we'll be using this until a more appropriate equipment can be secured. But I just want the expectation to be clear. It's not going to be here in 4 weeks. It just isn't. So I will work in that, and I'd be happy to update you each month to where we are with getting that equipment.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next steps, review of recent legislation for vaccine/quarantine and next steps.
Yeah, so guess I have a number of places that I guess I could start on here, and I think it would only be appropriate to start with where I find myself starting the conversations with this community, and that's with a thank you, because like on January 29th, and like tonight, and like Monday, I asked for you very specifically to make sure we could have orderly operations. We have seen things happen differently this week in other school districts. We have seen school board meetings need to be canceled, and that did not happen here tonight. And I know we have a varying difference of opinion, and I am going to ask you to maintain this type of integrity and this type of demeanor anytime we come together as a community. I heard too many times, as I've taken notes, together, adult emotions, bring the community together. That's what I heard you say, bring the community together. This is how we're going to do it, folks, is by making sure that we can conduct business keep focused on the kids. You know, didn't hear a whole lot of name calling tonight, let's keep going in this direction, and we're gonna get there. We will get you guys where you need to be. So I just want to say again, thank you. I know you don't always agree with it, you don't agree with my decisions, you don't agree with board decisions, you don't agree with administrative decisions, but please continue to follow our requirements, our expectations, the rules. We'll get there. So thank you so much for how you showed up tonight. I cannot tell you from the bottom of my heart that I appreciate that very much. What I want to do, and I'm going to kind of try to bring some of us, and I heard some of you, my child since, kindergarten, my child is at kindergarten now, their early childhood. Some of you weren't maybe in the system on March 13th, 2020. That's kind of the educator's day of infamy in kind of real life now. It was March 13th, 2020. That is the day the governor shut down the schools. He told us it was 2 weeks. If you remember what school looked like from March 13th, 2020 to the end of the year, think about that. The first time we closed to the end of the year, it was not good. It wasn't anywhere near good. In fact, we were struggling to do the best we can. You all knew it wasn't a good product that we put out, and we knew it wasn't a good product. We were in survival mode. If you think then to where we got at the hybrid model, we were one of the few districts that got to the hybrid model, and we made it through the school year. It was this time 1 year ago that you gathered pressing for in-person learning. I asked you to be patient. We needed time to get to in-person learning. We just couldn't shift gears that fast. We started this year with an in-person learning model, and we started under a different system in July than we are today. I agree with that notion. And we will need to make a change moving forward. There is no doubt. But what I learned, and what we all should have learned about this pandemic in schools, is that when we are forced at a certain point in time to make a dramatic shift the very next day, bad things happen and we don't have a good product. When we have time to plan and prepare, we get products like a hybrid model. We get products like in-person learning. So, while the agenda says review the recent legislation, I've been debating this with people by way of email all week long. We are going to agree to disagree right now about whether the TRO says we do or don't legally have to do it. Let's just put that aside, because if we get bogged down in whether your perception of footnote 29 and 30 is correct, or this side is correct, we lose sight of what the conversation is. This is not a fight, it's not a battle. This is me asking you for a little bit of time to develop the off-ramp. The idea of the off-ramp is not new to our conversations at the administrative level. We have been talking about the off-ramp for about the last 4 weeks. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not the train, folks. It is a return to normalcy. But this thing that happened last Friday was not the vehicle that effected change on Monday. We would have been, I'm just telling you, some of you would have been happy that you had your personal choice, but I would tell you your school experience for your children would have been a nightmare. Let me just give you a couple of realistic examples of what needs to be done in order to achieve the off-ramp. If we go maskless at some point in time, let's just say tomorrow as our example, just an example, folks. That would destroy our nurse's office, because we would be asking questions like, well, if we don't have a mask, how does that play into a close contact? How does that play into a child that's now positive? If we're not having quarantines anymore, if a child is positive, how long do they have to be out of school? We have to have those answers. If we talk about having volunteers come back to school, right now the requirement is that a volunteer in school be vaccinated, which means that we have to have a mechanism in our front office in order to check vaccination status. Now, that's the rule today. That doesn't mean that that's the rule 2 weeks from now. But any of these things cause a domino of how we need to operate as a school. So we have a number of buckets within the school that have to be worked out, and we need a little bit of time to do that. I don't need 2 months, I don't need 3 months, and I don't need through the end of the year. But any situation where legally or otherwise, the mask mandate comes off, know that the district needs time to get the ship moving in the right direction. I use the analogy of a ship because ships don't make right turns immediately. They come onto course. You need to allow us time to get this ship together. The term off-ramp is one that I think is just becoming mainstream, so we'll continue to use it. We got to remain on an off-ramp and not jump off a cliff. And because if we do, our systems are going to implode. I do believe that there is prefaces. I do not believe that I believe we are legally required to have masks today. Don't want to argue that point. That's what our attorneys say. That get beyond that. I do believe there is going to be a change in the system in a legal sense that will lift the mask mandate as we understand it and as I am applying it to school. And I do firmly believe that we should be preparing in a very significant and swift mode for an off-ramp. And I say that, and I want to be very clear because the side that is advocating for masks and calling for lawsuits and saying that money is tied to ESSER, there's a lot of fiction in that. And I just want to be clear that we are moving toward an off-ramp because I believe that is where we should be going. And regardless of what came out last Friday or what has occurred at this board meeting, we would have been talking about an off-ramp, right, wrong, or otherwise. We might not have been talking about an off-ramp in terms of masks off, but certainly getting volunteers back to our building. We've been talking with the PTO and BPC about getting meetings returned to the buildings. We've been talking about how do we get these things that traditionally are normal that aren't even associated with mandates, like birthday bags or birthday goodie bags back into the, like, we can get back to some of those things. But even those low-level things require a little bit of time. As we're talking about building this tolerance level for our community, you know, if we just tomorrow say birthday bags are okay, and we haven't worked with our staff, and I know this is really low level compared to masks, but it just demonstrates how important it is to make sure we have continuity and understanding at our teacher level, at our administrator level, at our board level, at our community level. I really would hate to just say, yep, tomorrow birthday bags are okay. The kid brings in his birthday bag and the teacher doesn't know what to do with it for the first time. Do they pass them out? Do they put them on a table? What do we do if a child says, I refuse to take one from you because it might be harmful to me? So we have a bucket about how to teach kids discourse. We've never really had to teach discourse to kindergarten and first graders before, other than why someone's wearing glasses and someone isn't. This is going to be a new approach for us. We need time to educate our staff. Don't hear me wrong. Don't hear me at the end of the year. Hear me, that's the best administrative team that exists in the state of Illinois. I believe two teachers. I see, her face is covered with a mask. Again, I don't even know if she's a teacher, but there's two teachers here, and they represent the best teaching staff. I told you when you asked me how are we going to get a hybrid model going, I said I don't know, but I can tell you if anyone can make a hybrid model work, it's this district. If anyone can get us on an off ramp, give me time, give us time, us meaning the administrative team, the teachers and I, just give us a little time. Give some patience. We will build the off-ramp that will get you to a choice about masks. But there's a lot of moving parts to that. And we want to make sure that when this is done, the educational experience that this community has demanded and expected and come to know as being the best there is, can still be that way without turmoil. With that, and just my, I don't have a crystal ball, guys. Nobody understands what our governor will do. Nobody understands what the legislative system will do. Nobody knows what the appellate court is going to do. All I can use is my experience knowing how things work downstate, which is very limited. I can rely on my contacts at the state legislative level to know that this is coming to an end much more quickly than probably that side of the room wants to know. Okay? It's coming. I think a reasonable time frame that the board should expect some change in our operations is February 28th. I know that sounds crazy. It's a Monday. It has nothing to do with the governor's lifting of the mandate, but it gives us about 2 weeks to begin putting into place what that might look like. And I want to bring you back to July 29th. I listened to that meeting tape. I didn't listen to the public comment or the reopening plan. I listened to the board talk about universal masking. That was the word then. We talked about things at that time, not masking the middle school because 7th and 8th graders primarily were vaccinated or had the opportunity to be vaccinated. Not saying they were, but they had the opportunity. And at that time, we talked as a board about vaccines being the thing, the primary mitigation. At that time, we thought vaccines would operate maybe a little differently than they do now. But in July, we never thought we would have 5 through 12 vaccinated by now. We thought maybe we'd get 12 and up or something like that. So we're in a different place today than we were in July. And at that time, we made a decision to do universal masking because that's what at that time was what the CDC recommended. And it is what Cook County was recommended. So we follow those guidelines. Things are different today. I think we can move in a direction, with a target date of February 28th. And maybe that looks like a layered approach. Maybe that doesn't look like a layered approach. Maybe that looks like really strong mitigation, like social distancing kept in all areas, but masks removed. Those are the things I need my time to work with my team to develop. And if you give me that time, keep the schools the way they are. Don't stop putting me in a position you have to remove kids from the classroom. The ed is in sight. Let's get through the next 2 weeks and a day. Keep this demeanor, and our community stays connected. Our community stays strong. We have a really good school system, and we'll have a great product when we get out of here. I just need a little more time. That's all I'm asking for you. You give me that, and I'll continue to return what we have always returned to you for the last 2 years during this pandemic. And there'll be questions. What do we do if it goes back up through the roof? We'll have a plan for that, but we need some time. And we've been thrown into a tailspin this week. We've survived this week better than a lot of other people have. That's through a lot of hard work that we put together in 12 hours from Sunday. So to Monday, give us the time. That's what I'm asking for. I'll stop there. Be happy to try to answer any questions that you have. I don't know that I will have all those answers, but happy to.
Mark, you touched on this a little bit, but can you just clarify how ESSER funds are related to this?
There is no direct relation of ESSER funds in any way, shape, or form to not only masks. It's federal money, so it's not even, ESSER is federal money. It's not even tied to a mask mandate. It's not tied to any governor orders in any way, shape, or form.
How does the staff feel about children coming without masks, or do they feel like they don't wear masks anymore? What's the tone of the staff?
Right, and this is just this is just another realistic example, guys. There is a labor force that I have to work with. And what I can tell you is, over time, I believe we can get you there with our labor force. If we would have told, I'll just tell you what would happen if we had to go mask for whatever reason, we have to go mask optional the next day. I'm going to have to have a serious conversation with labor to move that quick. Without, they need the time to plan. I think that's a split feeling there. But I think if people understand what we're doing, they understand the plan, they understand how they're protected, they understand how it's good for kids. We have a phenomenal working relationship with our union, our collective bargaining group. We are always working toward the same goal. And this is not unlike the first time we came back to hybrid. We came back to hybrid and our teachers showed up, every single one of them, to work with our kids. And we had a school in the same town right across the bridge whose teachers were boycotting coming to school. So, but that takes time to work through those scenarios and get people in the place they need to be in order to be here. So, do I think if we just really got rid of masks tomorrow, I would have a labor problem. If you give me 2 weeks to work with the union, we've already had an initial meeting with the executive board. We are all on the same page. We are all working to the same direction, but I have 150 employees. And I got to get them all into a good place. And we will get there, but we're not going to get there tomorrow.
Question. Are you planning on sending a survey out to the community in the next 2 weeks to see engage comfort levels?
Yeah, I think initially my answer would have been yes. On Monday, my answer would have been yes. Today, my answer is no. And this is the reason. As we begin to develop the off-ramp, I suspect the people that are very fearful for their children being in school, those that have significant health conditions, those types of students, we will have to work with on an individual basis, but it's not going to stop the off-ramp. This isn't, if we were trying to decide, if I really felt like it was me trying to gauge where the community was to determine whether we do or don't do an off-ramp, that would warrant a survey. We have to do an off-ramp. We have to, because someone said the masks aren't going to be here forever, and whether we like the pace that it's going or not, it's coming. So I think survey would send a false message that we are asking for your opinion about whether the mask should or shouldn't be there. We're really moving toward what that looks like. And it's going to look very similar to the reopening plan. What does it look like for instruction? We probably try to keep kids at 3 feet. You know, what does it look like at lunch? My guess is for now, we probably keep kids 6 feet apart, and then we start looking at how do we get them closer together and more opportunity for social interaction. And we start looking at all those things that are in that plan. And the only thing that changes is part of masking, but that will have impact on other parts. And I guess while I'm on, I just want to be very clear about busing and athletics. Just as a quick aside, I know that's probably, particularly for VP, is just busing. Busing is under a federal mandate by CDC, and our buses are considered public transportation. So the CDC guidance on public transportation is mask wearing. So even if the school building is mask optional, our transportation system, if I said they don't have to wear masks, they can refuse to provide us transportation. So we have to abide by transportation rules, number one. And number two, our athletic teams at SC Gross, they are governed under a conference, and that conference bylaws adheres to IHSA, IDSA. That group was not named in the lawsuit. And as long as they still have masks and or the conference still agrees to adhere to that mask, we're there. So let's just, for now, please, let's just worry about schools. Buses and athletics can come after the fact, but just know that those three things are set. School is separate from buses, which is separate from athletics. I might have forgot the question now, sorry. Did I answer it?
Yes,
Okay.
I actually have another one. Correct me if I'm wrong, based on what I researched. The governor stated if the numbers keep going down the way they are, the restrictions for masks will be lifted on February 28th in the state, except for in schools, hospitals, and I think there was another one. What happens if that happens? Is what I'm asking.
Yeah, and I think that's when I reference, as I rely on my experience and my connections in, at the legislative level and the number of agencies we use to interpret what's happening there on the political landscape. It's February 28th or before that he will lift all mandates other than schools. I mean, that at least was his comment then. The order that I presume we are under Again, without getting into debate, is the executive order, which was reestablished on February 4th, and he's been reestablishing these for now 22 or 23 months. I do not believe that order will be reestablished in March. And I believe that date would be March 5th or 4th or somewhere in that area. It's every 30 days. I believe that order will be left to sunset, and I believe at that time there would be no legal jurisdiction of the state to mandate masks. So I'm hedging my bet on that. However, what I would say, and I would say to everyone out there, I'm asking for 2 weeks to February 28th. If we're still under a mask mandate, I'm moving forward with my plan. However, if the governor drops the mask mandate tomorrow, please give me to February 28th to get the school system ready. That's all I'm asking. 2 weeks. So I don't know if that answers your question, but what I can tell you is, take this for its worth, I believe after a conversation this morning that roughly in the neighborhood, in rough numbers, 2/3 of the state are not our mask option. 2/3 are. 1/3 of the state is following the guidance. That would be one of us, not guidance, that'd be one of us. But out of the 45 school districts in West Cook or West 40, which is us, out of the 45, 44 out of the 45 are following the guidance right now. Yeah, and it is, and I think in addition to helping kids to understand why, today it's okay to wear a mask and tomorrow it's not, and particularly for our youngest learners, that's going to be a challenge. Again, we work with exceptional staff, we have exceptional support pieces put in place, and we'll have to prioritize not only that type of conversation, but the conversations about discourse and respecting one another in the classroom for the individual choices that they make. And I kind of analogize it this way. The reason why we're really, really good in crisis situations that we can plan for, like fire, tornado, those types of things, is because we practice it and we rehearse it and we have time to plan. The crises that we're not good for are those that we don't have time to plan for. So give me time to plan for those type of conversations, and our teachers can be trained and developed quickly. And they've had these difficult conversations, whether it's around unfortunate deaths, loss of students, or whatever. They know how to have those conversations as long as they have time to prepare for them, and we give them the script and we practice that, and we tell them the do's and don'ts. So I think we can be ready for that. And we've demonstrated that in other areas.
Mark, I have a question. Do you anticipate this off-ramp including any kind of local COVID metrics?
Yeah, no.
Number of cases, outbreaks, whatever.
No, and I'll tell you why, and I know that probably comes off really crazy, like, well, wait, you're not going to use metrics. For the on-ramp of hybrid learning and, in-person learning, we never use a specific metric like 5% positivity, 15%. We never use that. What we used was the ability to operationally manage. And what I mean by that is, can we keep schools open for kids? And I'll tell you, I'll be very honest, that week after winter break, we were about one step away from an adaptive pause. And the reason why, it wasn't that we had so many kids with positive, I had 17, 18 teachers out positive. I had 85% attendance rate. So just trying to operate with that decreased number of staff and that few student, 85% were still here, but that's still a significant number of kids that we have to monitor outside of school. We were really close. We squeaked by that week. I'm glad the numbers went the other way. But if we were using a metric, we would have immediately closed, and we didn't have to. So I wouldn't use a metric of a certain positivity rate. It would be whether we can operationally sustain ourselves, and that has been the metric that we have used since the day we started this 2 years ago. And I don't know why we veer from that now.
Mark, I know a big conversation is that volunteers are itching to get back in the building, which I will also say, I believe the BPC has lots of volunteer opportunities, but you mentioned that the part of your off-ramp plan is that.
Yeah, and I think really that was part of what we were talking about as at the time, we weren't maybe talking about an off-ramp, we were talking about ways to get people engaged in the buildings, and that certainly is part of it, and we're still continuing those conversations. I think I remember hearing Mr. Sorensen and Ms. King discuss that, BPC is bringing their meetings back. If I've misspoke, I apologize, but we feel like we got to get parents back in the building. We feel like that has caused strain at the parent level, not seeing things for so long, not connecting as a community. When we talk about bringing all these people back together, it's going to be centered around what our kids are doing in the classroom. So they got to be able to physically see and touch that. But we got to have a plan for that. We can't have 200 parents running around the building probably when kids are in, but we certainly can get back mystery readers. There are things we can do. Yes.
My question is, do you see that coinciding with the February 28th date, or maybe a little bit longer?
I actually see some of the low-lying fruits of that happening before February 28th. Yes. The things that don't really revolve around mitigation factors, essentially quarantines and masks. Anything else I see we can put into place. But again, it requires time for the building administrators to work with team leaders to push that information out, and so that they can get it out to their teams and talk about how they're going to implement that in the 5th grade, 4th grade, 3rd grade, and then communicate it to parents. But I see that work happening like right now, like within the next week.
Okay, I have sorry. I respect a lot that you are wanting to have a 2-week plan. I think that's a really smart approach to it, especially for teachers having SEL lessons in their classroom on how to behave and treat each other, especially if we do mask optional. Not even at the younger grades, but the older grades in the middle school range, just having those conversations. I mean, I teach 8th grade. My poor 8th graders haven't seen their friends like normalcy since like mid-6th grade. So it's going to be an adjustment to see each other's faces. And there's probably kids on both sides. Like, I don't want people to see my face. I'm comfortable with this thing on. And other kids are like, get this thing off me. So I think it's a really good conversation to have at all levels, kindergarten through 8th grade.
And it will. And, somebody put in an email to me, you were out front on everything, leading on everything between, hybrid learning and personal learning and all of that. Be the leader on this one too. And I respect that. And trust me, I'd love to be the one out front showing everyone how to do it. But there is also a time to sit back and watch others. And we really have the opportunity right now to sit back and see how this is working in some other buildings and learn from some of their missteps. And again, my peers, in the not southern part of the state, but the southern suburbs, that have moved quickly. I think they wish they would have spent more time. But I'll tell you, I think this is what we're really going to see. And I'd be willing to hang my hat on it. When we go mask optional on whatever happens on February 28th, I think you're going to see a large percentage of kids still in masks. And then I think as the days go, that percentage is going to shrink and shrink as kids get more comfortable, they get, the ones that are maybe afraid to take off the mask because they think they're gonna get criticized, it's gonna see others aren't getting criticized, they're gonna take off, and that number's gonna slowly shrink all the way down through the end of the year. And we can then start, as we get through kind of the initial off ramp, as we're off and we're now on the side street, that's when we can start getting ready to get kids back to fully normal, so that next year when we're starting, kids know how to eat at a lunch table that's not 6 feet apart from one another, that, kids know how to, interact in these situations. So I really think we're at a good time for the off ramp. I think it buys us a time as we get into spring, we can get outside more. There's just going to be a lot of opportunity to really finish strong this year and really be in a place to be kind of where we've been wanting to be for 2 years as we start the next year.
Mark, piggybacking on that, on the conversation about social emotional learning and kind of teaching these children how to be unmasked or choose to mask, there was a suggestion in some of the public comments that teachers may bully students who opt not to mask. Do you have any information that would suggest that?
Not only do I have any more information to suggest that, I'm going to hope that, and I don't recall who said that, and I noted that as well. I'm truly hoping that that was not said, that it wasn't meant the way it was said. I have never known a teacher to bully a student. I've never known a teacher in this district to do anything other than what's best for students. And I couldn't fathom that that would ever occur in the district under a mask or any other situation. We have students in this district that identify as different genders. We have students in this district that have chosen different sexual orientations. We have staff members in this district of the same nature. And this has been nothing but an inclusive school district ever since we have been here. So I can't imagine that mask would be any different.
Thank you. I found it really disturbing when it was said.
So I only said that, and if you look it up online, you will find it. And I did not say that our district will do that, but I would bet that there are a lot of parents in those districts that didn't think it would happen there either. And I'm not saying that it would be intentional. People are very polarized.
Betsy, I'm sorry, you can't speak, you can't.
Yeah,
Megan, were you done with your question? Because I have a few things. I would like to start by saying that I think, everybody knows kind of where I was at back in July was when vaccination was available for the students within our organization, in our buildings. Then I would very much go removing masks at that time. And we didn't have an option for it. Public health person, I realize, vaccination is truly the number one mitigating factor that you have for COVID. Please do not mistake that as me saying that I am pro-vaccine mandates, because that is not what I'm saying. People still have choice. Have we heard anything coming from the state about that, like as a reactionary factor to, like and the other thing I will say is that I do believe that the mask mandate does apply to us legally, and that's why we had to do that. However, my question is, do we see anything coming if they lose the appeal and now everybody has to go to mask optional? Do we think that they're going to come out and try and push that?
It's the question, do you feel like they're going to push a vaccine mandate?
Yes.
Yeah, so let's just be really clear when it comes to a vaccination requirement for schools. That cannot be mandated by a governor, even through an executive order. That would require a legislative session and approval, and almost in a way, and I apologize to the attorney, I'm not saying that I'm not an attorney in the legal way, but it would require legislative action and approval, almost like a law would, very similar to measles, mumps, and rubella that you already have to supply to a school district. And there is nothing on my radar in any way, shape, or form, even a bleep, that suggests that that's going to happen.
And I only asked because I wanted us sitting here to understand that piece. And also, as I heard in public comment a little bit about vaccinations and vaccination mandates. And, I think some people in the community feel that you could move away from masking unless you had everybody vaccinated. I
had not heard anything about that coming and wanted to see if you had. So that's not part of our roadmap off in any kind, or even how we're making our decisions and that. You know.
Yeah, I think just, I want to be clear for the public. There will not be anything in the roadmap that says, that ties your ability to take a mask to your vaccination status. Not at all.
You know, when you're mapping out an infection control plan, I'm sorry for putting on just my thing, so the mitigation strategies and your roadmap. Are you anticipating, how do you think that it's going to be applied with, again, I understand needing time to get people educated and to get people on board and making sure everybody understands their responsibility in that. Speaking to the mask, and we talked about it being optional, is it going to be recommended within the plan, or is it just, okay?
Yeah, and I think that's consistent with CDC language, it's consistent with any language. The R's are the two things we've always looked at, recommended versus required. So the CDC is still, based on whatever science you think masks don't work, the CDC is still recommending, so we would recommend, but we're not going to require.
Got it. And then how would, because when you have these plans, you put all these mitigation strategies, it's a tiered approach, right? You do this because you haven't got this, whatever. So as we're walking this back, and then you say that we'll have some initial steps by the end of February. How rapidly do you think the other steps? Are we going to look and see what's happening in our community with that? Or is it kind of like we're going to set this timeline and unless something completely goes off the rails, like with masking, and then, you know, looking at, or this level of volunteers, and then the next is we're going to start having these larger group gatherings, or we're going to let parents back into our gym for a sporting activity, or like, is that kind of what you're seeing with how we're going to roll this piece back?
Yeah, I think there is, I don't think we go from 0 to 100. That's falling off the cliff. You know, masks are important. That's the critical piece now. That's the priority. So I think, what do we need to do to be effective and operate when we make masks, you know, recommended? And then what trickle down does that have in our health office? What does it have in our SEL talks and our students? And then what can we do in other areas, such as athletics, volunteers? You know, to the students' point about band, we haven't really had an in-person band concert. It's probably time we start looking at how we pull that off. But those are things, I mean, a spring band concert happens in the spring. I don't have to figure out a band concert right now. You know what I mean? So, and athletics, again, you know, we are fortunate in our facilities that we could have more parents in our gymnasium, but that's not true at, say.
And I know we can only control that in ours. I asked these questions for a particular reason, because although I think mask is a key part of the mitigation, and I do believe they can serve their purpose, I don't think they're, I think that the emphasis on the other pieces that go into how we operate as a school. And although I disagree slightly with some of the people who spoke, who said the children are who have suffered the most, and this, I would argue, is our geriatric population who lived in congregate care situations and they died without their loved ones at their side. But I put right next there that it's the school kids that have lost valuable time in their lives that they're never going to be able to get back. And masking, not masking, and I'm not pro-masking, but it's these other things that are just as valuable, and getting them back to them is really important.
Yeah.
They need their lives back. They just suffered them.
Yeah. And I just want to remind everyone, again, going back at, you know, to the administrative team. Last year, when there was no athletics for students at the middle school, I sat down with Mr. Campaign and Mr. Evans, and we said, what do we got to do to get kids involved in some level of activities that aren't basketball and contact? And they pulled together, the staff over at SC Gross and the men and women in that building, they came up with kickball, badminton. They came up with a ton of activities that kids
They were amazing.
Because we knew we needed to do it. So,
and I just want to make sure that in bringing that up, our hands were tied. I feel that the administration's hands were absolutely tied with a lot of the things that had to be in place. And again, we have learned so much from March 2020 to now, and things that are evolving. And honestly, now that we have vaccines and we have a treatment options, that's why we can have these conversations. It's not a negative about the decisions that were made prior, they were decisions that had to be made. However, now they're right at the end of the tunnel, and I'm just so excited to hear that you guys are meeting and that you're talking about this, and that we can get some, and again, rapid, all of the time, that's not the best approach. It is the best approach and recommended to take it, as a lawyer. But I'm just so excited to hear that we are moving back in that direction.
Especially for my second grader, but, in kindergarten. So I'm really excited about it, to hear that you guys are moving in that direction.
Well, I think what we all have a problem is that this is something that we never expected for us to go through. And we did come together as a community to come back to school, and we all agreed that our children need to be back to school. And if they continue to not wear masks, then that's what we did. And, I think you just have to, as long as we've been into this situation, we've got to take the measures to slowly come back out to make sure that our staff is prepared, our teachers are happy, our teachers are great. And we need to make sure that everyone's prepared. And I don't feel like we all are sick and tired of it. We're all tired, all of us. But I do want to make sure that we're taking a measured approach and we're going to be patient with each other. And we're going to do it in a way where we're successful. I could not agree more with you, Jessica.
That's, and I have a question. I know that.
And so just a couple of things, I guess. One thought is, 2 weeks feels soon. And I trust her. I've sat at this table for over 3 years now. I trust you. And that team really is amazing. I remember before we came up with the full day model and the hybrid model, and how much work they put into summer, which maybe you'll get a summer this year. But so I trust all of you. But 2 weeks it feels soon. And I think that's going to be a feeling for a lot of parents. And so I'm just wondering, how do we get parents there?
Yeah, and I think, and I agree 2 weeks is soon, but I also think that that 4 weeks is too long. It's finding that happy medium. And this isn't going to be the first time we've got to get parents on board. Probably the easiest onboarding was the hybrid model because each parent got exactly what they wanted. They either wanted to be at home or they wanted some level of in person. And that was the hardest to pull off, but the easiest to please. In person, we've had a lot of people that didn't want to come in person, and we had to work with that. And I want to be clear just to everyone so that you know that it's out there. The option to mask recommended is not a remote model. That is not allowed under ISD. Remote education is only allowed in an e-learning situation or an adaptive pause. So, in the same way that we've dealt with and reassured parents, we're going to have to get them there. And that's why tonight's conversation, to bring it to the forefront that this is where we're going, is critical so that we can begin those conversations and start addressing those folks. And there are going to be students who may not have met certain criteria in the mitigation standards we have, and we may need to work with them differently under this group. And we have to take that on a case-by-case situation, just like we always have. And we'll get the community there as long as we continue to act like we did tonight. We will get the community there.
So I guess my other question is as far as, kids with 504 plans, or IEPs, and, they might likely need special accommodations with this return or this unmasking. I'm just wondering if we will be proactive in reaching out to those families that would probably be most impacted.
Yeah. I guess what I would say is probably when I say biggest violators, I mean the students that have the hardest time conforming to the mitigation requirements. Don't touch, don't stay 3 feet apart, keep your mask, as fitted as it's supposed to be. Our students with special needs, our GCE students, so they're already used to not maybe fully wearing their mask the right way. So that's actually going to be one of our easier groups probably than you would think.
So will there be time spent, like professional development, spent with our teachers? Because I have heard from teachers who have gone back, who have had some mask optionals in other districts, that there is some taunting happening between students and both, you know, and I just feel like we need to support our teachers through it so that, and in the same sense, maybe some reach out to our community on both sides, you know, just some, whatever we're teaching or telling our teachers to be saying to our kids, we can make sure is being said at home, because whatever is being said at home is what's coming out of their mouths, because they weren't born with those thoughts, they're getting them somewhere, right? So we need to make sure that we're all in it, and I was, so is that kind of what you're thinking?
So I think there's a couple of things. There's nothing, I have no concerns about being able to get our student body there and our community there. The thing that I appreciated, I'm seeing some heads bob when I say, please just give me 2 weeks. I'm saying, okay, we trust you. And I think there's a high value of trust of our community and our school. And the other thing that our administrative team and our teachers and our students have done really, really well, and I'll just give a couple of quick examples. And I think some of this taunting and things like that is probably more unique to a middle school setting than it is an elementary setting for sure. But what Mr. Evans and Mr. Duncan have done an exceptional job with is building a culture and climate at the middle school of respect. And when the recent TikTok challenges came out and schools across the nation were worried about people destroying their bathrooms, slapping teachers and things of that nature, it didn't take a whole lot of intervention to remind the students at SE Gross of what was expected and what was appropriate behavior. And they really respond well to that culture climate type of conversations, not only by the administration, but by the teachers. And so getting us to that point, I don't know that it's really a professional development, like we got to spend our institute time talking about it. It's really us working with our teachers or our team leaders meetings, our different leadership teams that we have in place at Brook Park, just getting that message out and disseminating that through our communication channels and setting expectations in the classroom. I mean, we can, that's a couple day piece, really, as long as we can develop that message, get it then communicated, get it practiced, and get it ready to go. As long as those teachers feel prepared, they'll deliver exceptional results.
I do trust them implicitly to get that done. And so Melissa's point, I mean, when we were here in July, I was in favor of having our middle schoolers not be masked. I was thought that would be a good idea, and then as we talked and thought community-wise, I would say it, but I would agree that 2 weeks sounds really fast, but I also see how fast things happen, right? Like the numbers, the first week in January compared to where we are now. I know we're not going to go on metrics, but just in general, they've dropped. And I'm not a doctor or an attorney, and I have reached out to a couple infectious disease doctors that I know to ask for their opinion to just run by, because I don't want to just go on feelings and opinions. And definitely sees that this is coming closer than we may have thought 2 weeks ago. So with that, I feel confident that we can do it safely. I just really hope our community does what they need to do to make everyone feel good about their choice. I think we'll still see plenty of kids with masks on their faces for a multitude of reasons. I don't think it's fear for all of them, maybe some are, but I just think the school has done such a good job. I have a kid here and I have a kid at SE Gross, and yes, there's educations look different, but there's still the sports activities. They run clubs here all the time. There's so much that can be done, and the teachers gone above and beyond. And I look forward to more parents being in, because I think people not being in this building, we talked about before, just cause people to not trust And that's not what we're about. There's no reason to get to that point. So I look forward to that in a safe way. I think our kids will bounce back. They are resilient. They are strong. We've all raised them strong. I think we just have to stick together even more. And I know we can support our administrators, we can support our teachers. And it will be fast, but I think we just can do our part to get this done.
I don't have a question per se. I agree with so much of what's been said. I think I agree 2 weeks feels fast to me. I'm encouraged to see numbers dropping, and I know, like Katie said, that number of metrics aren't a part of the equation, but maybe that's just because I'm so used to looking at that, and it feels like a part of my equation. So I am encouraged to hear that it's dropping, and we're kind of coming out of this huge increase that we have, and hopefully we keep going in that direction. I also want everyone to know that we hear you, and we've read the emails, and we've heard your messages, and this has all been hard. I teach kindergarten. I teach little ones to learn their letters and sounds and learn how to read, and it is absolutely hard. But the word's been thrown around so many times about doing things together, and it is the only way that we move forward in any way. I have absolute trust in this team to get us where we need to be in a safe way, and I appreciate the appeal to have some time, and I say take as much time as you need to get it